I'll tell you what, 1 minute it seems to be like Sunday, and the next minute it's to the ABC of CBD, featuring the quite extraordinary Ollie Mammon, who, of course, today has decided to have internet problems. It was my turn last week. It's Ollie's turn this week. And you may notice that Ollie is sitting in a very, very smart environment. So, Mr. Mammon, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
This is like two-way family favorites from 1955. Yes. Now, Ollie, the other day, Tuesday night, I couldn't sleep, as per usual. So I decided, it got to 3:30 and I was climbing the walls. And I thought, well, there's no point in me presenting the ABC of CBD if I you know, I can talk the talk, but I've got to walk the walk as well. So I went to my kitchen where I keep the very nice to help me sleep. So I put on the roller on my wrists and forehead. That was marvelous. And then I took the pipette, a few drops. I think where I went wrong, Ollie Mammon, is instead of a few drops, I think, because I was kind of blurry, I took an entire pipette. The next thing I know, my phone is going, and it's my co-presenter, Mr. Phil Dave, and I was due to be on air. I've seen the playback. I look off my face. Naturally, I blame you, just so you know. But boy, did it work. Wow. I slept from 3:30. I don't remember anything. It was fantastic. I was asleep, but when I saw myself on the playback, it truly works. I have been spreading the word to there's lots of people. Pleasure. There's lots of people, Ollie, who are have terrible sleep problems, and I always say, please reach out to Ollie Mammon, reach out to the Tincture Club. Speaking of which, here is a kind word from our sponsors.
I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD, a product created by users for users, a product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil, no additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service, the cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
And to be brutally honest, hey everybody, I do have to stand by the fact that, you know, if I really didn't believe in the product, I wouldn't be associating with it. And what Ollie has done is just fantastic. Veronica Curran, straight away. Evening, guys. Yes, we were waiting on Russ, referring to last Wednesday. This was fabulous. Thank you very much, Veronica. Ollie, you're looking very smart with your.
I want to know if this is working.
It is. It looks great. Anyway, over to you.
Is this working? Can you guys?
It's working fine.
Okay, fine. I didn't. But my internet's being really tricky.
Yeah,
so
perfectly.
Yeah, so I'm live from the Taylor Mammon office today, which is kind of fun. Can you hear me? All good?
Yeah.
All good.
All good. You carry on.
I'm live from the Taylor Mammon office today, so thank you very much. We're episode 12 today, so thank you everyone who's joined us over the last 3 months in order to do it. Merry Christmas for everyone coming up to Christmas. Happy Hanukkah for everyone celebrating the first night of Hanukkah. You know, I hope you'll have like a wonderful festive season period. Now, over the last 12 weeks, we've heard a lot from, you know, advocates and patients and lawyers and doctors. You've heard a lot from me, someone who went on his own journey, and you've heard a lot from different people. Also, you know, we've discussed different ideas. We spoke to raw extract suppliers, and, you know, we've got a general understanding and a general idea of the cannabis world. Now, we still have to understand that for a lot of people, you know, their daily consumption is actually illegal. Not everyone has the luxury of being able to either get a prescription or afford a prescription. Not everyone has the luxury of being able to go to one of the private clinics which is available. And people are still getting in trouble. So there are some people out there who are like activists, but they're activists for a specific reason. They're not activists in the sort of, I'm going to go and burn down a police station sort of way. They're activists in terms of this is not right, and someone's got to speak up when something's not right. So I've got this gentleman who I've met many times over the course of my, say, career in CBD. One of the first times I met him, I was actually heckling him when he was on stage, you know, so we've had a interesting relationship, never a bad one, but always an interesting one. I respect him greatly. He's got a fantastic brain.
You were heckling him?
Well, yeah, he will explain the story more. It's actually not that bad. But yeah, like, and basically, he's got incredible brain for understanding law and compliance. Now, I always say this from the beginning, you know, I'm just a guy who makes products, and I've got a passion because I went on my own journey and I found what I needed. But I mean, there are a lot of people out there who don't know what they need, or there are a lot of people out there who, you know, unfortunately, you know, have to break the law to get what they need. And it's nice to know that there's someone looking out for them. He's not a lawyer, but he just understands the law a little bit more. Now, everyone's got their part to play in this community of ours. You know, I design products, that's what I do. Doctors give prescriptions and they do the whole medication thing, like Dr. Sandra Carrillo. You've got, you know, doctors like Callie Seaman who do their part a bit more on the educational front of cannabis, you know, and then you've got advocates like Tanine who will go and, you know, shout for people like her daughter. But you also have other people who are kind of secretly in the background trying to go a bit bigger. And I think that that's what this guy is. He's trying to do something for a lot of people out there. And it's not just for cannabis as a medicinal use. It really is. It also brings in that Jamie Bartley conversation, which we had, you know, of, you know, the versatility of hemp. And, you know, I just kind of want to bring him out because I feel like we're going to have a great conversation here today. There's not really a story to tell. It's more of just a conversation. And it's kind of a great summary episode because, you know, he works with hemp and he works with medical cannabis and he works with so many different aspects of this market, but from, you know, a compliance side and a sort of, you know, a paper writing side. So he gets to see, you know, words and like laws and, I don't know, facts. Like he sent me over something to read, which was like 65 pages long. And he was like, you just got to read this. It's almost like their manifesto, the Seed Our Future manifesto. It was incredible. And literally when I read it, there was a lot of stuff in there, of course, I already knew, but there was so much in there. I was like, it's incredible. And like, I want to bring him on because I don't want to talk about it without him in the stage. Don't want to talk about it with him in the stage. Sorry. I don't want to talk about it with him at the stage. So if it's possible, yeah, I want to bring on Guy Coxall now and let's start the conversation.
And like magic, there he is. Hello, Guy. Welcome to Men's Radio Station. Thank you so much for joining us on the ABC of CBD. Really appreciate it.
Sorry about my little outburst just there as well. I just kind of, you know, I got carried away. Now, yeah, so Guy, let's start the conversation. I don't like most weeks I have this sort of plan, but I feel like with you, there's so much more outside of the box than inside the box. I want to talk about Seed Our Future. I want to talk about this new EU ruling, the new UN ruling. I also really want to talk about a few of the stories which you brought up to me. And there are a few names which I just want to bring up because, you know, it's like the listeners of this show, for what I hope is, you know, we're trying to convince the people who trying to educate the people who aren't, as opposed to giving more education to the people who are. And the aim of this show is to kind of make people realize that it's not, you know, stoners and hippies. It's something a bit deeper and it's actual, you know, compassion. That's why we brought on the Tanine, you know, that's why we brought on Tanine with the video and the impact. So yeah, I just want to, before I rip you, you know, before I start like throwing questions at you and just like ripping apart your manifesto, which I read very thoroughly, just like talk about yourself and introduce yourself and just chat.
Okay, yeah. So my name's Guy. I've been involved in cannabis for several years now. It's not where I ever expected to go to be honest. I've always been a bit of an environmentalist. I've always cared about helping people. I've got a background in teaching English. teaching disaffected youth, which we talked about the other week. I was a therapist for a while, did hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming. So I've always had an approach of wanting to help people, and
the compassion, the energy. Yeah.
And I got involved when I first heard about the CBD industry, really, and heard about CBD, and it seemed a bit too good to be true. And I like to research. I think it probably comes from my teaching background, and started looking into it. And I was just gobsmacked when I started reading about the endocannabinoid system and then the history and the prohibition. And it just blew my mind. And I thought, really, I want to get involved in this. I want to help. This can help millions and millions of people. And that's where I started, really.
I'll tell you what's incredible. So, I mean, you have those people who want to immerse themselves in a subject in a practical way. Then you have people who want to immerse themselves in almost the theory. And I'm talking about, in terms of theoretical, immersion, you're probably one of the most theoretically immersed people I know, because, in terms of, I mean, no offense by this, but I mean, you're not a farmer and you're not a grower and you're not an extractor. But all about extracting, all about growing, all about nutraceuticals, all about this and all about that. All about the laws surrounding them, probably better than most of the farmers and growers out there. And I mean, it's really important for the industry to have people like you who kind of immerse themselves in that minutia, in that small print, and into the minor facts which make things legal or illegal, and those minor facts which kind of help us grow into a more mature sort of a more mature cannabis culture, you could say, a more mature cannabis legal society. And I just really like that. I mean, as someone who's very practical, I love everyone who's behind me, who enables me to make the compliant product, enables my creativity to stay within the boundaries of what's legal. I always appreciate people like you. So I just want to say thank you, from the community. You worked for the CTA, didn't you?
I was one of the founder members of the CTA, and it was around the time that the MHRA were going to ban CBD.
I remember that.
Medicine.
Guy, we've got an awful lot of sorry, Guy. I always like to be everyman here. We've got a heck of a lot of initials there. Could you walk us through what all of those things stand for?
Sorry, there were 7 people who put together the Cannabis Trades Association.
Right.
So we're all for the same cause, really, to make sure that the CBD industry would remain available, so that people could use cannabinoids for health. And it was around the time of the MHRA, who the Medicine and Healthcare Regulatory Authority, who regulate medicines, the same people who have just accepted the new vaccine. They look at different products, and if people make medical claims about a product, then they consider it a medicine. And at the time, the CBD industry were making lots of medical claims, and that was causing issues with the MHRA. And they made a response basically saying that if you're going to call it a medicine, we're going to classify it as a medicine, and it's not going to be allowed to the general public without a prescription.
Right.
So we had a meeting with the MHRA to discuss it being classed as a food supplement. So it goes into food law with the FSA, the Food Safety Authority.
Right.
And that's kind of how it became a food supplement, really.
It was the start of all the madness.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was the start of all the madness. It was like I had 2 policemen show up at my house because I had a package of CBD that was intercepted, and they showed up. And literally, they were saying, this is illegal. And I was like, it's definitely not illegal. And they got on the phone to their supervisor, and their supervisor said it wasn't illegal. And then their supervisor said it was illegal. At the end of the day, they left me with it. They walked away. But police officers were my FedEx drivers. And it was just a bit like, whoa. And it was just, I remember at that moment was the moment where me and my business partner, Nathan, actually reached out to the CTA. It was like, must have been, I don't know, 2016, June, August 2016. It was all very early. This industry has moved in light years. I mean, it's a 4-year-old industry, 3.5-year-old industry. You had a few people tinkering in it before, people like CBD Brothers, who have been around for a long time, and a few other brands, people like like Love CBD, they were around for quite, the Love CBD or something like that, they were around for quite a while. But then and there was Charlotte's Web in America. But there weren't that many CBD companies. And in the last 3.5 years, I mean, it's just snowballed into just insanity. It's incredible. It's incredible what this market's become. You're not at the CTA anymore, though, are you?
No, early on, I took on the role for my sins as a compliance director. So I was in charge of compliance, making sure that all the members were compliant with, labeling, and making sure that it was what it said on the tin, getting lab results, things like that. And that really snowballed, and it helped the industry as well. It helped make sure that people continue to have access, and people knew that they could trust certain companies, know that they were compliant. So I did that for 3 years, and then I left in November last year. So I left a year ago, and that was really a very big changing point in my life, because I went from compliance really to so-called activism.
It's not really activism, though, because it's still compliance. Like, I read your report. That's not activism. Activism is like, I don't want to say fear-based, but I mean, it's a lot more advocacy. I mean, like, it's basically it's a basic cannabis curriculum. I mean, you've got cannabis history in there. You've got cannabis science in there. I mean, I urge anyone who wants a basic understanding from a positive angle about cannabis, if you want to have a nice nighttime read, I mean, it's better than half of the books I've read about cannabis and half the books I read about medication, because at least it completely crushes the whole demonization. I mean, the one main thing I got from your article, which was like, it's been playing with my mind because it just kind of just played. Hemp and cannabis has been legal in terms of history, in terms of like infinite time, has been legal for more time than it's been illegal. It's only been illegal in the UK for like the last 50 years. I mean, in 1973, and by the way, I double checked some of the articles which you said you quoted things from. I just wanted to make sure I do that. It's a uni student in me. But I mean, I basically double verified. I was like, oh my God, he's right. They were prescribing cannabis medicine in 1973 in the UK. And it's just a little bit like the last 50 years have been so damaging and so, changing. And I don't even, I'll be honest with you, after reading your report, I was just like, you know what? Even from the medical cannabis perspective, I'm under the opinion that there's enough of a system in the UK, both illegal and legal, where if a patient really wants cannabis, they can go out there and get it. It's not hard to find if people want to look for it. In fact, the matter is, you go on Instagram or Facebook and join one of the groups, there's 1,000 people who will facilitate any need you need. What you got me thinking about, and it was like, there's one point which kind of just keeps on going through my brain like crazy. It's the industrial aspects, and it's back onto Jamie Bartley's argument. So how much, versatility there is in hemp. And then I was looking at the one point which you made, which was about a substance called graphene. And graphene is a substance which they use in solar panels. So what happens is you have this solar panel and you have this graphene, and this graphene is a mined substance. So who knows what sort of child labor or whatever horrible life is like the poor miners go through to get this. It sells for an extortionate amount of money. But then this graphene has less active potency, you could say, in terms of solar energy storage and solar energy capabilities to attract than the hemp derivative which has been crafted. And I was thinking the hemp derivative which has been synthesized from hemp is actually more sustainable, and it's cheaper to produce, and it actually absorbs more energy, and it also it can bounce energy back better. And it just kind of got my brain thinking. I was like, oh my God. I mean, it's just like, it's a life-changing plant. As in from I work in the CBD industry, I work in that sort of, I create products that help people. But I mean, that can like actually help people. I mean, like, it's not like help an individual with their pain. It's like helping the world to kind of keep on ticking. And it got my brain thinking about the industry I'm in completely differently, to the point where I was up with my girlfriend until 1 o'clock in the morning the other day, researching different mines and researching, like how hard would it be to find the investors in graphene to invest in hemp to be able to kind of make sure that they don't then try and block everything you're doing, and they can kind of push you through. And that's what my brain would think. I'm like, oh my God, it's like this could be like the future, you know, like, and that's one application, you know, and that's what you're like, I'm going to call it your manifesto. Okay. The cannabis manifesto. Do you like that? Yeah. There we go.
Right, Guy, what would you call it if you didn't call it a manifesto? What would you call this work?
Well, it's called a report, really. It's a general report about the cannabis industry, and it's for the people, but also for government to help them change legislation.
Now, over the last 12 weeks, you know, Ollie and I were talking for months before we started the series, and it's a subject that I openly say I know nothing about, which I think is good, because I want to go on the journey along with our listeners and viewers and learn. Now, the thing is this. The legislation, to me, as an outsider, as Mr. Joe Public, seems absolutely bonkers. Just seems the most peculiar thing. I'm
doing my trick. I'm doing my job then. If I'm converted,
no. I mean, Ollie has gently held my hand and the hand of all our listeners all over the world and taken us on this extraordinary exploration of a subject that I knew very little about. I think the thing which first got me thinking, what on earth are they thinking, is the idea that we had your farmer,
Jamie Bartley,
who was charming and educated and all those things. And then, but he can't. And then there's a UK product, and there's Ollie having to buy from abroad. That to me just seems completely, you know, counterintuitive. I don't understand it.
What's been going through my brain is it's even bigger. So look, take cannabis out of the picture, okay, and take medicine even out of the picture. What was going through my brain after reading your report is the laws which govern medicine and the laws which govern cannabis also seem to govern the farming of non-cannabis and non-medical hemp. So what happens is you have almost this overarching kind of tree which is kind of sucking all the light and the energy which could be going to this smaller shrub, which is agriculture, because all this negative light is bombarding this tree. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So you've got this, so let me rephrase that. Okay, fine. So you've got this negative view of cannabis, and you've got the laws surrounding cannabis. Now, like, even if you take that out of the picture, now keep the laws of cannabis negative. But what we're doing is we're holding back on other sort of technological advances as humanity. Like from reading that report, I was like, you know what? From a non-cannabis perspective, they just need to loosen the laws on farming hemp so these creations can be created. So we can make hempcrete, which is a sustainable concrete, or you can make hemp insulation, which is sustainable insulation. I was reading one of the things about your hemp tank, okay, or the hemp tank who you got to do the article, and it was something about how hemp can reduce emissions globally or in the UK by 80%. So not only do you have the outlay of being able to save loads of money and have renewable, like industrial, like I don't even know what the word is, industrial products, do you know what I mean, by the number for a fraction of the price. You could also do stuff to reduce the climate. I mean, I just, like, the articles just literally bombarded me. I mean, I've got 75 pages just going round and round in my brain. So if I seem a little bit all over the place, it's because it will do it to you. You'll end up finishing it and you'll be like, I don't get it. The Bible was printed, the King James Bible and then Henry VIII's Bible were both printed on hemp. And you're like, I swear I actually heard that at the British Museum when I was 6 years old. I mean, like, but you know, the whole idea now of creating a hemp paper, I mean, you need hemp farms to create hemp paper, but you're not allowed to grow a hemp farm without a license to. And the licenses are, well, quite taxing, quite governing, and quite strict. And I mean, I know your report has literally switched my mind onto the other side of the market. I mean, like, I loved what Jamie was preaching, but I mean, it's made me start thinking as opposed to just listening. Do you know what I mean? I really urge everyone out there to read it, because, like, yeah, like I said, even as someone who loves the whole medical cannabis side, I didn't think about the report from that angle. And I wasn't expecting that. I thought I was just going to pick out the bits I wanted.
So
I never
Guy,
Sorry.
if we wanted to find this report? Is it somewhere in the public domain that people could look at it?
Yeah, it's on the website. So seedourfuture.co.uk is our website, and
Feed Our Future.
Seedourfuture.co.uk.
Okay.
And on the homepage, it goes through all of what we're doing with the campaign, and it does have links to the report.
Now, Guy, let me read you, and Ollie as well, let me read you some of the comments coming in, as I said, all over the world from our listeners who are seeing the show as well. Victoria Curran says, we've needed the minds from amazing researchers. People need the understanding. We don't want them to light up a joint. The children with epilepsy show such YouTube, certainly isn't me. And then Maureen Corona, could you have a worse surname in 2020, Maureen? I'm so sorry. Your life must have been hell. Hi, gentlemen. Mr. Oliver. Very, very polite, Maureen. Mr. Oliver, thank you. Really like your products. Have taken it. Listen to this. I've taken it for the last few weeks. I wish I found CBD years ago. Too many years suffering pain.
Amazing.
It's just something like that actually makes me very emotional, Maureen. I'll be honest with you. It
I love that.
really, really does. It's like it's a complete vindication of what we're trying to do here on Men's Radio. And Tony Fowler, hello to you. Guy is a hemp advocate who talks sense. Government, read his report.
1,000,000%.
So
Thank you,
let me because I've not met Guy. I mean, you're obviously a huge Guy fan. I'm becoming a huge Guy fan. Suddenly he's not your fan, Guy. Here's the thing. How long do you think before a government says, look, I know we've got 1,000 other things to worry about. So this is not high up the totem pole, but let's just say eventually with a magic wand, we get back to some semblance of normality, God knows when, but we will eventually. How long do you think once that happens, or is there any chance a government of whatever persuasion might say, I think we've got this a bit wrong. We're missing a trick here. There's so many advantages. Do you think that's going to happen?
It's difficult. We have been contacting. We've actually contacted all 650 MPs in the UK with the report attached, asking them to look at it and reconsider the law. We've had some positive responses, but the majority of them have been negative, saying basically ignoring that the evidence that we've produced that shows that the harms that they claim aren't really anywhere near what they claim to be.
So for the uninitiated Guy, what is their, because I guess this was where I was coming from 12 weeks ago. What are they generally saying?
I got something which just where I remembered. Okay. It's the peanut thing. The peanut thing. I love the peanut thing. I love the peanut thing. I love it so much. I mean, literally,
no idea, everybody.
To explain. I loved it. I just kind of thought, oh my God, the peanut thing. Sorry, go on, talk.
You want me to explain that?
Yeah, I would love to explain that.
The peanut thing. You've got us intrigued now.
Peanuts kill more people than cannabis. There's not been ever one death related to cannabis overdose. In fact, it's physically impossible. And you look at, the amount of people who die from allergies, the amount of people who, die from overdosing on aspirin. 40 aspirin tablets is enough to kill the average human. It's such a safe plant, and there's so many uses for it. And any substance has some relative harm. I mean, even water you can drown in. But to actually compare it and say it's an illicit drug, especially when alcohol and tobacco are not scheduled, and they kill more than all drugs combined every year. I think you get about 300 deaths. Yeah, and pharmaceuticals as well. They all have side effects.
Guy, listen to this. This is coming in, as I said, you probably thought I was joking, but we do have listeners all over the world. This is Matthew Cope, who's writing to us from Quebec in Canada. Listening from Quebec, where pot, CBD, and THC is legal, and the retail stores and websites are actually operated by the government. Blimey. Contrary to the fear-mongering that preceded the legalization, the sky has not fallen. There you go. Very, very interesting.
There's
That's
actually
from
a
Matthew
really,
Cope.
there's a great report from this year, earlier this year, actually, from the UN, who have been assessing where it's been legalized in certain places in the States, Canada, Uruguay, and actually looking, has there been harm? Has the sky fallen in? And it hasn't. Actually, crime has gone down. There's been no difference in car accidents. People have been healthy. Opioid addictions have dropped. There's so many positives.
And I think in your article, in your report, see, they keep on flashing back the whole Australia thing. So I think it was like 85 to 94 that was controlled legalization in certain areas of Australia. And I didn't realize this actually happened. Once again, double verified, it actually was true. So you had this controlled legalization in certain parts of Australia. And what happened is they realized that kids who weren't smoking weed didn't go and look for weed. It was only kids who wanted to smoke weed who ended up smoking weed. And I think the same thing would apply nowadays. I don't think it opens gateways. I don't think it's that hard to find. That's the problem. You know what I mean? Like, if cannabis was hard to find, then yes, legalization would open a whole gateway. If it's something which didn't exist and then you release it onto a market, but it exists. I mean, like, you can get something probably delivered to your house in 15 minutes anywhere you are in the UK now. I mean, it's crazy. If you're in Manchester, they'll probably do it in 10 because it's a small place. I mean, it's like a really crazy market out there, and fact of the matter is you can find anything you need, and if you need to travel abroad, you could travel abroad. If you want to have stuff, like if you want to find stuff in the UK, people find it, that's why there is a cannabis culture. But there's no, I don't think the world would change. I just think that the government would get a whole bunch of tax money, but that's not really that's not the bulk of what you do. It's not pro cannabis legalization, is it? Cannabis being the whole plant, it's not pro medicalization. It's pro general decrim. You want freedom of the plant, don't you?
That's it. I mean, it would actually have the opposite effect. It would be so positive to our environment. As you said before, we could mitigate most of climate change. We could create a whole green new industry. People would be healthier because they're getting cannabinoids. But also, most of the harms are actually from prohibition itself. So many people end up, even just if you get a caution for being stopped and searched with it, that goes in your criminal record. That can stop you getting jobs. If you get arrested and actually go to prison for something that causes no harm to yourself or others, that can break down relationships. It can stop your job opportunities. It could end up actually making you a real criminal and actually going on offending. And, the prohibition actually causes more victims of crime because it perpetuates the whole of the prison system. So, you look at health, you look at the economy, you look at the environment. It's all good. It's all positive.
Hey, Guy, let me pick you up on a few points there. How would it help the environment? I'm curious.
Okay, so to give you an example, Oliver mentioned before hempcrete. So you can build a house out of hempcrete, which is non-toxic. It's got very good thermal dynamics, so you save about 40% on heating bills over the lifetime of the building. The building itself is actually carbon negative, so it absorbs carbon. And then you can power it using hemp. So you can use graphene batteries, which outcompete lithium ion, the solar panels, like Oliver mentioned. You can even run your car on hemp petrol, hemp diesel. You can use aircraft fuel. All of these technologies are there. You can get rid of plastics and create compostable bioplastics. It's just endless. I mean, when you actually really look into the environmental application.
So Guy and Oliver, jump in whenever you want. Is it the protectionism of these existing industries which is stopping the advance? Much as I suppose the only parallel I can think of, they had electric cars 40 years ago, probably 50 years ago. Hydrogen cars they've had for ages, but the oil lobby is so huge. understandably, it's so powerful that it's inhibited the progress that could be made.
Yeah, I mean, you look back in history, Henry Ford, who created the very first Model T Ford in the 1930s, he created one made of plant-based biocomposite, which included hemp. It was 10 times stronger than steel. He also ran it on hemp seed oil. So that the first diesel engines were actually designed to run on plant-based oils. So the technology was there. And most people really think that cannabis was prohibited because of the psychoactive effects. It was actually because it was a main competitor to different corporations. So the pharmaceutical corporations, the oil corporations, the cotton, the timber industry, that was the main problems. Yeah, pharmaceuticals, all of these big corporations, and that's why it was stamped on. It was really the hemp applications, the industrial applications of cannabis, rather than the actual psychoactive and the medical, of course. So, that's what we're still pushing against, 80 years later.
It could be another thing, just go back in time a little bit. Just think about what happened in like the 80s, like with the, you'll know this better than us. It's like the corn company, Monsanto, something like that.
Oh, yes, Monsanto.
Yeah, Monsanto. So Monsanto came out in like the 80s or 70s, 80s, 90s. They're like, everyone, all you farmers, sell my corn, grow my corn. You'll make loads of money, grow my corn. Now, it was a way of controlling the farmers. Then what happens is you grow their corn and they suppress the price. There's so many farmers out there. Well, we don't need that corn anymore. At what moment of time you've basically destroyed your soil and everything you could grow in it is that. So I can imagine almost go back no one likes anyone having freedom. So no one likes Monsanto. That's what it was a power play. It wasn't about getting his corn syrup isn't the best. You know what I mean? His corn's not good. It's a power play. How do I make everyone work for me? And the same thing is now. Is how does everyone make everyone? Same thing was then. Like go back to the 1920s, 30s. How do you make everyone work for you? And you make them work for you by growing something which they have to supply to you. And how do you do that? You ban them from growing what they originally grow and know how to work with. Do you understand what I mean? So it was a control play. So that's not in the report, but I mean, that's the way my little messed up brain saw it. It's like, all right, it's just like a control play 60, 70, 80 years before the corn control play. It's just like, how do you stop a farmer having his own?
Ollie, just to put the other side of the coin, because otherwise it's a bit like a runaway train.
Of course, sorry.
It's that the argument is, of course, if you do everything naturally, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. What I'm saying is the argument is that if you do everything naturally and grow everything naturally without genetically modified food supplements, you will not have enough food to feed the crazy population of the earth. That's how the argument runs.
A million percent.
As opposed to it's a control, versus it's a way to control all the farmers.
No, of course.
I would like to counter that argument by talking about hemp seed. Because if you were to grow hemp, which needs no chemicals, because the chemicals are really bad and they cause cancers and all sorts of things. If you were to grow hemp, which will grow in most climates throughout the world, it produces a lot of hemp seed. Also, if you move away from what we call industrial hemp today, which is very low THC, and increase the THC level, you can increase the seed yield by 7 times. And that can be used for fuels, but it's also the most nutritious seed on the planet. So when you look at hemp seed, it contains about 30% protein. It's the same sort of protein that we produce in our blood plasma, so it takes no energy to absorb. It contains all 21 amino acids and the perfect ratios of omegas 3 and 6. So it's as nutritious as meat. So if we were to grow that worldwide, that would get rid of the hunger problems around the world. Without having to
what completely confounds me, and bewilders me genuinely, is this: if you know this and you've done all the research, and yet everyone's saying, well, people are starving, why don't they just plant it?
It's not about that, Russ. It's like
no. My questions, it seems so blindingly obvious.
No, but that's why
in areas where people are starving, just shove it in the ground and off you go.
So Russ, around the world, it's happening. Now, like I said, if you go back 100 years, these laws didn't exist. Okay, and the world was around for 2,000 years as we know it. You know, not as we know it, but 2,000 years previous, and it was around for, you know, probably 3,500, 4,000, 5,000, 50,000, 100,000 years before that anyway. And these laws were never in place. And I'm not saying the mass cultivation of cannabis occurred, but cannabis did grow naturally, and cannabis was consumed, and cannabis was used. And, you know, there's like, you know, in antique stores, you can find tincture bottles from the 1800s, which say cannabis tincture. And, you know, like it's been around in history for a very long time. It's ingrained in different cultures, you know. So it's just a bit like you can't fight the powers that be now, unfortunately. I don't really, to be honest with you, like, I know that medicinal users can find what they need on the open market. I am really in a weird way, I've done this whole switch now. I'm thinking they really need to kind of do this from an industrial perspective, because it kind of gives us sustainability. That's kind of what I'm thinking of. That whole David Attenborough is like echoing in my brain. It's like sustainability, and we're killing ourselves and we're destroying our planet. And I'm thinking, if there's anything that can help us, and we ignored it, we might as well give it a shot. Keep criminalization. I'm gonna like you know, I mean, as someone who would be sad if you kept criminalization, keep criminalization. Let's just like see what we could do with hemp as a plant for the actual world. You know, let's see if we can, I don't know, reduce waste, or, you know, make a bioethanol diesel which kind of runs cars, or, I don't know, create sustainable something. I don't know. That's the kind of where my brain is going now. It's like a little bit more.
Hemp is cannabis. You know, you can get the industrial aspects from any cannabis. And as I said, you know, you actually increase the yield by increasing the THC level. So, you know, we can save the environment, and we can save our health, and we can save our economy. The two biggest problems in the world today are the legislative conditions of a corporation, because a corporation is its own legal entity like a person. And it only has responsibility to its shareholders of making profit. It doesn't have any responsibilities to destroying health, destroying the environment, and that needs to change because they can get away with it. The other problem is people in politics can get financial handouts from these corporations, which is what happens with lobbying. And, you know, in any you know, you're businessmen, and in a company, if you get financial incentives from another company, that's a clear sorry, what's the word?
Violation.
Inducement.
Yeah, you know, you're not allowed to take money from other organizations or anything like that.
But it goes under the umbrella of lobbying companies, which is I mean, it's infinitely worse in America than it is here. It's extraordinary, the power of these lobbyists. I mean, quite extraordinary. Thank God we don't have it anywhere near to the level that they do. I was just thinking when I was listening to you, Guy, and to you, Ollie.
Hey, Russ.
One of the ways that people would embrace this in a heartbeat is if, and I'm not a technical person whatsoever. I'm a writer and broadcaster, but I'm not technical. If you could somehow say, if you grow this, it'll help the electric car industry, they would rip your arms off to embrace it. I'm serious, because it's you know, these things. I used to be in marketing for many years. It's all, you know, it's the way you sell it, isn't it? It's the way you sell it.
Yeah, but I have issues with that as well. You know, just last week, the UK government pledged to change all cars in the next 10 years, I think.
2030, they're saying. By 2030, they brought it forward by 10 years, which is...
I drive a 1971 truck, okay, from America, like a pickup truck. I mean, this thing, it drinks like 6 liters of fuel between my house and the petrol station. I've got to fill up whilst I'm driving it, if not I break down. You know, it's one of those trucks. As in, this is going to kill me. As in, it's like...
Hemp Seed oil.
They're talking about £1 a mile in the UK.
All right, so hang on. Let's go back. By the way, I didn't know you drove that. You know, as a devout petrol head, we have to discuss that, but not during this show. Now, here's the thing, Guy. What were you going to say? Because they brought the legislation forward. It was going to be 2040. Now it's 2030. It's not doable, by the way. But
well,
anyway,
just think about it. It's a false economy, and it's certainly not environmental, because
No, it's
first you
madness.
think about where the electric comes from. I mean, you can
Thank you.
get
Thank you.
electric vehicles using the batteries from these new hemp graphene batteries,
Mhm.
but you've also got to think about the production of a whole new fleet of vehicles for the entire population. The amount of carbon that will be used in producing all of those vehicles will outcompete the use of all of those vehicles for the next half a century.
It's a
So
load.
if we were
I'm
to
going to go
just
public and
use the
say,
cars we
Guy,
already have and hybridize them, so you could put a hemp battery in there
Hmm.
and you could run it on hemp fuel, that would be much more sustainable.
Incredible.
I've got to
quick-
say,
And it would
Guy,
cost you
I
half
couldn't
the price
agree.
to make.
I couldn't agree with you. I didn't even know we were going to go down this particular
And you
road.
can recycle them.
No pun intended. But I couldn't agree with you more. This whole thing is the emperor's new clothes. It's
Mm.
been the emperor's. It's just, we've got to do it. We've got to do it. The same way we were all told to buy diesel. Then diesel was the spawn of the devil, and only driven by Lucifer. And now petrol. It's a nonsense.
Fine,
And my other point is. Sorry, Ollie. My other point
sorry.
is this. And if you can bring it round to cannabis and hemp, you're geniuses, the pair of you, which you probably are. But it's like, if everybody goes electric, they've got to produce enough power. So when you plug in your plastic car, it's going to do it. Where does that come from? It doesn't come from
they're talking about
magic
nuclear
electric
power
tree. They're going to have to build more power stations. It's
Well,
guaranteed.
they're talking about nuclear, yeah. Which
Precisely,
again,
and they're going to be nuclear. You can see this a mile off.
Or they're going to have to make more solar panels, which also cost a fortune unless you use a hemp derivative. And, like hemp can grow. And then worst case scenario, when the battery goes dead, you can recycle it.
You can't run You can't run a car off of solar power. You can't.
No,
you can't run a car off solar power.
No,
You
but
can
you
charge
can generate enough solar panel to charge a car to then run it.
Yeah.
In England, in Manchester, in the rain.
I don't know.
No, California.
There is a new development of solar panels, which apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but I did read it recently, that these new solar panels can actually generate electric from rain as well as sun, which would be interesting. That would solve a lot of problems in the
That would be Mary Poppins magic.
Everyone in the UK would buy 3.
That would just be a sensation. That would be a sensation. So Guy, you've written this report, which has Ollie foaming at the mouth with excitement.
I loved it.
Yes, we've got,
I want to bring up a name afterwards when you're done, Russ. I want to ask him 2 questions, but
no, Ollie, it's your show. I'm just intrigued. I'm sorry, I'm just being Mr. Everyman here. Ollie, go ahead, please.
I'll tell you what it is. There was one other name which kind of stuck out at me, and I think that we need to bring it up. So it's Philip Anthony Bevington.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that kind of also struck home with me. Like we all have grandparents or have had grandparents before they passed away. We all know pain and we all know suffering. We all know what people go through in their last hours. And fact of the matter is no one deserves to suffer. I mean, ever in any way. And so I was reading that little bit, did a bit of once again, did my counter research as I do. And it really struck home. Like it really, really struck home. Like, don't get me wrong, we all know patients like this, but I don't know anyone who's been put through that. So I know people who have been in pain, old as well, like the older generation in pain, and they've used cannabis, and they've used a full plant product, either smokes or taken extracts or edibles or something. But I mean, I don't know anyone who's gone through his situation. So I just wanted to kind of mention him. I think he deserved a mention. And once again, it was mentioned in your report, not in actually that much detail, but it was mentioned. And I kind of think that he deserves a mention because that's the sort of stuff as well. And you know him, don't you?
Yeah. We've become good friends recently.
So we've got 12 minutes. I kind of wanted to leave on that note because that had it circled on my page.
So tell me about this chap, please.
Yeah, well, he's 80 years old. He had stage 3 kidney disease. The doctors basically told him there was no treatment, there was nothing they could do, and he'd soon be on dialysis. He did some research and realized, he could grow some cannabis plants and make some full extract oil. Which he did. He grew enough plants to be able to last him a 3-month period. And he started taking this oil and it was working for him. Everything was changing. His disease was regressing. And in general health, he was doing better. Unfortunately, he got raided by the police. They took all his plants away. And his
Was this in the UK, Guy?
Yeah,
Or in
down
America?
in Cornwall. Yeah.
Cornwall. Okay.
And he did it again. Got caught by the police again. So he's actually in Crown Court next week.
He's 80.
80 years old.
This is
Saving
mad.
his own
This is
He's
complete
80. He's
nonsense.
old.
The
He's
man's
so
80
old.
years old. What do you want from him?
He's
the
80 years old.
maximum sentence he could get is 14 years in prison. It's
Yeah, well,
ridiculous. I don't think he will. You know, we've got a lot of
There's
support.
no judge in the land's going to put an 80. They're not going to put him in jail.
You never know.
You know.
That's the whole point, Russ. You don't know. There are people who've been put away for less.
Ollie, there's no judge. I can tell you, there's no judge in the land who's going to put an 80-year-old
really hope not,
with
man.
severe major illness. You know. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that sound sums it up.
Why are they even putting him through that? As in, just take away his stuff. All right, like I don't know, give him a fine. You know, like tell him he's got to pay like a fine within 25 years. You know, knowing full well they've shut him up a little bit, but
you have to do that.
No, but I mean, like 25. No, but 25 years, he like, you know what I mean? Like no one's, you know, most people don't live till 105. Do you know what I mean? Just defer it. Just like, but I mean, like, there's got to be something. Give him community service. Do you mean just make it work on an allotment? Do something. There's got to be something which is less degrading than making an 80-year-old man who's already just in pain.
You know what it is, Ollie?
He's a fighter.
It's not a question even.
I don't know him. I just
it's a question of being degrading. What it does. And I've not heard this case, so I'm hearing this for the first time, and I'm sort of reeling here because of its lunacy. And what I'm thinking is, it makes a mockery of the law, because there should be some latitude there, some elasticity, or if you want to put it in common parlance, a little bit of wiggle room. The guy's 80; he's doing it for himself. He's in considerable pain, you know. And in all seriousness, bless him, how long? With that sort of level of illness, you know, your life expectancy is, you know, as they say, don't buy green bananas. So it's unfair. And when you have the mockery of the law rather than the degrading, Ollie, when you have the mockery of the law, you think, well, the whole thing's nonsense, rather than, and that's why it becomes into disrepute. I beg your pardon. Yeah,
I think this
is what Seed Our Future is all about. It's fighting unjust laws. You know, we can't allow this to continue. So many people are suffering, and so many people are being prosecuted and having their lives destroyed for a natural plant that's not harmful. You know, we need to change the law, and we need to do it now.
And he's not doing it in this particular instance with this chap. He's not doing it for personal gain, is he? I mean, you know, he's not selling it on the street or driving around in a BMW with blacked out window.
1 gram of oil per plant, and it was enough to produce a 3-month supply.
Russ, could you be bothered to get on your bike and pedal down to the corner to sell someone a few eighths? I mean, like, and you're younger than this dude. Could you be bothered to do that? I mean, I can't imagine an 8-year-old man thinking, you know what, mate, I'm going to get involved in the trade.
No, this is the point. No, it's the point.
I'm going to show the kids what it's all about. You know, back in my days when Al Capone ran the streets, you know what I mean? This poor guy, literally, this poor dude. I mean, he
just let him be.
What we need, and this is really important and something I'm working on at the moment, is when you look at the justice system, when he goes to Crown Court, he'll have a jury. And most juries these days are very much guided by the judge, and they're told that they don't have the right to a null, which means do not guilty because they find the law unjust, which is basically judging on their conscience, which is what it was all based on in the first place. So any people on this listening to this program who might be in jury duty in some time, make sure that you remember you have the right to a null. You have the right to say no to unjust laws. And if enough people do that, it will stop this. This is how the alcohol prohibition in America stopped.
But do you have that right?
You do, yeah.
It's not a rhetorical question; it's a genuine question.
It is used, but it's very much hidden away. The courts won't tell you that you have that duty. It actually happened in 1998 for a cannabis trial, where a taxi driver was growing cannabis for his wife with cancer, and the jury annulled it, and he got off with it. So it can work, but most people don't know it. And the more we can get that message out that will really make a difference. Like I said, the alcohol prohibition in the 1930s, 60% of the court cases were annulled, and that's what stopped the prohibition. There was no point taking it to court anymore. If we can do the same with cannabis laws, that would be a massive drive forward.
It would be great. The trouble is that a jury does not have the right to sort of have a vote on whether they like the law or they don't like the law.
You only need 2 people out of 12 to say no. And a case like
It's got to be based.
It's got to
be based on the facts, right? You know.
Well, that's what you're told, but that's not actually true. It originated in the Magna Carta in 1215, and it was actually the cornerstone of democracy. You see, the reason for trial by jury isn't just for a fair and impartial trial. It's also to actually judge the law, because this stops tyrannical laws. It stops despotism, which is a tyrannical government who make up laws without any justice for their own gains. So that was one of the problems. You know, trial by jury. In fact, on a plaque on I can't remember the name of the court in London, there's actually a case from 1670 where there were some Quakers in the street who were campaigning for their religion, and they were arrested. They were going to be hung, and the whole jury annulled it, and the judge put them in prison for 2 days and nights without any food, threatening them to do a guilty plea because they were arguing the actual law, and they got away with it. And that was a precedent in law. It's really fascinating subject.
But when we spoke to Jackie,
I'm getting away slightly. Ollie, I'm getting away slightly. Let me just ask Guy something very, very quickly, if I may.
Go ahead.
I think this is just me personally. I'm not speaking on behalf of Men's Radio at all. Just me in my personal capacity. The 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in London is bonkers. Putting aside, other people love it. I don't. All right, done for speeding. Said I want a trial by jury, right? And what were you doing? Well, you were doing 32 miles an hour. Oh my God, you like the craze. So say you're doing 32. You can't say to the jury can't sit there, can they? I'm trying to reduce it ad absurdum, as we used to say. So the jury can't say, well, you know what? I don't like this 20-mile-an-hour thing, but it's the law, isn't it?
But they should be able to.
That's the point.
The jury should be able to be like, the law's not right. That's what the jury's there for, isn't it? I mean, like, I'm not a lawyer.
That's exactly the crux of the problem with this gentleman down in Cornwall. It's exactly the same. That's the very crux of this problem.
If you think about what Robert Jaffe was saying about how laws are formed, and laws are formed based on morality, and a certain morality has to come into play when forming a law. If you're sitting there and you can feel like that awkward energy that something's not right when you're sitting in a room, does that mean maybe there might be an immoral play behind the law? And maybe that the episode is called "Sometimes Laws Need Changing." Okay, laws sometimes need changing. Like, I feel like that kind of is a great final point. Even though we've got 2.5 minutes left, I'm going to count this as the final point, but not end the show. It's like that whole sort of laws need to reflect morality. If you feel like a law is immoral, then theoretically laws sometimes need changing. It's just an opinion. None of this is this is not activism or advocacy. I don't want anyone to go out there.
There's a word. There's a word. No, I get it. There's Guy, help me out here. There's a word. What is the American things when they want everything devolved to a local level? I can't think of the damn word. It's gone out of my head.
When they want everything devolved to what? Sorry?
It's not to a local level. What's it called? Damn it.
I don't know.
Oh, it's gone out of my head.
We've got 2 minutes. We can think about it for 2 minutes, or we can chat.
Help us, everybody. Come on. Matthew Cope in Quebec, you know the word I'm trying to think of. That people, is it like a political idea?
One last thing I would like to mention before we go offline is I've just updated the Seed Our Future website and added a section for CBD users. And I want CBD users to be involved in our project because we really want to save the CBD industry from the 1 milligram THC rule and
the novel food. It's going to destroy it.
So I put a letter together, which is on the website, that they can send to their MP. And if we can get many people sending that letter to their MP, that can hopefully eradicate novel foods and the THC rule.
Novel food is going to cause something disastrous for the market. As in, I don't think people quite understand that the products they've got used to over the last 4 years are all about to disappear in the capacity they know them, and every bottle you buy, if it is on the marketplace, is going to be different. I mean, as a manufacturer, I mean, we're letting our people we're manufacturing for know, but I mean, every product's going to change. All of the interesting flavors and all of those little interesting additives and the turmerics and the echinacea, they're all disappearing. They're all going.
I've got to say that I knew nothing about this area because we're just running up to the end of the show. But you know, Ollie with his passion, and Ollie with the extraordinary guests like you, Guy, you're awesome. Who are articulate, are knowledgeable, and highly intelligent. You know, you make such a persuasive argument. Thank you so much for joining us.
What a great
Ollie,
hour,
I will see you PG next week. Guy, thank you for joining us. This is Men's Radio Station. Take care. Stay safe.